Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. You are watching a previously recorded broadcast. Tune in every Monday and Wednesday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Instagram at TarantulasDreamTV for new episodes. And remember, it is a weird, weird world.
Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend. The Constitution of the United States. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties. Of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Where we go one, we go all. God bless America.
It is intended for the entertainment and instruction of broad-minded adults only, and should not be played to or sold to minors under any circumstances whatsoever. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the floating pie pan in the sky at Groom Lake Analog Recordings. Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. Now here's your host, Samba.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another broadcast of TarantulasDreamTV. I am your host, Samba, and we're here to talk about QAnon tonight. The big, the bad, the awful QAnon. They're blowing up in the news. Even our president, he was talking about him the other week. So we're going to get into some of the background on QAnon and just kind of dissect this beast and see what's underneath. Phone number for the show is 520-704-7820. If you'd like to call in at 9:30, I'm opening up the phone lines as usual for open lines. So if anyone has any questions for myself, Samba, or for my in-studio producer, Totataban, potentially they might be willing to answer a question off camera. Maybe I can relay that to them. But feel free to give me a call at 9:30, 520-704-7820. I want to thank everyone again for tuning in. This is Tarantulas Dream TV. My name is Samba, and let's get into the night. Let's get into that meat. I hope everyone had an okay weekend, all things considered. It's a wild world out there, so hopefully everyone made it through to Monday safely. I don't know. The days kind of blend into each other, so whether or not you had a good weekend, maybe today is still part of your weekend. I don't know. When you get older, the days just kind of bleed, and there's really not much to look forward to in regards to a weekend. But we made it to Monday, so let's celebrate the fact that we made it through the weekend, I guess. So some headlines for tonight. First one comes from LiveScience.com. Lab confirms first case of coronavirus reinfection in the U.S. A young adult in Nevada was confirmed to have been infected with the coronavirus twice, marking the first confirmed case of reinfection in the United States and the fourth in the world. This past week, researchers reported cases of reinfection in a patient in Hong Kong and 2 patients in Europe. But in all 3 cases, the patients were either developed a milder form of COVID-19 or asymptomatic the second time around, according to NBC News. But according to a new study, the 25-year-old 33-year-old Nevada patient developed more severe symptoms the second time he was infected. His case was published as a preprint on the Social Science Research Network and hasn't yet been peer-reviewed. The researchers have submitted their paper to the journal The Lancet Infectious Diseases. It is important to note that this is a singular finding, study co-author Mark Pandori, the director of the Nevada State Public Health Laboratory, said in a statement. It does not provide any information to us with regard to the generalizability of this phenomenon. So, not the greatest news in the world. Having said that, this was kind of expected, I think, in regards to reinfection and people's ability to contract COVID-19 and then get it again, was always theorized. I mean, despite this being a novel coronavirus, it does behave a lot like other coronaviruses that we've had in the past. In fact, coronaviruses have been around for a long time. This is no different. This is just a new coronavirus, and so it's behaving like a lot of other viruses would. And you can get the flu and then get another strain of the flu later on during the year. The only thing is this is a lot more deadly. So unfortunately, not a great find, but not entirely unexpected. So not the end of the world. So hopefully everyone, if you've been reading about, if you've been keeping up about COVID-19 stuff, this doesn't worry you to the high heavens or anything. It's not the worst news, but not great. And our second headline comes out of Tucson.com. Internet dispute among dinosaur deniers won't topple Tanca Verde T-Rex. Despite what you may have read on the internet, one of Tucson's most beloved fast food landmarks is not about to be torn down by an angry mob of dinosaur deniers. The snarling Tyrannosaurus Rex in front of the McDonald's at Tanca Verde and Grant isn't going anywhere, according to Lizeth Alvarez, area supervisor for Diaz Management Incorporated, which owns the bustling franchise. Absolutely not, Alvarez said. People really seem to like it. It's a landmark, really. Concern for the life-size replica cropped up earlier this month when a post targeting the T-Rex on Tanca Verde showed up on the Facebook page of a group called Christians Against Dinosaurs. According to the page, as well as the group's website and occasional YouTube videos, CAD is dedicated to the belief that dinosaurs never existed at all, but are, in fact, a scam perpetuated by scientists, possibly as part of some liberal plot against religion. There's nothing factual about any of this, of course. It flies in the face of mountains of fossil evidence collected, studied, and cataloged since the 17th century. On the other hand, it is on the internet, and since August 15th, so too is the following post on the Christians Against Dinosaurs Facebook page. Please help. This McDonald's has this dinosaur and refuses to remove it. This is in Tucson, Arizona. Call the manager and demand the removal of this blasphemy. So, looks like our beloved Tanca Verde T-Rex, McDonald's T-Rex, isn't going anywhere. So at least not, the Christians Against Dinosaurs group isn't going to get it taken down or anything. So feel free to go visit that T-Rex anytime you want, wearing a mask. Don't go unless you're wearing a mask, but feel free to check out the T-Rex. I don't know if anyone on the listening right now has any ideas on what the T-Rex is. Does it have a name? Do we have a name for this ancient creature or what? But if you do, feel free to throw it in the comments. And that's headlines for the night. So before I get into the meat of QAnon, I want to check a couple of these comments out because it looks like y'all are talking about some stuff. Trial and Error Collective, I want a segment with the producer. That would be fun. Well, if my in-studio producer Tatataman wants to get on the mic someday, I am totally down for that. We'll see how that happens. I do. My lovely mixer over here has plenty of inputs for some in-studio guests when that seems appropriate. So if they ever want to get on the mic or on camera, that's fine with me. L Christine 729. Yes. Are you referring to? I'm sure the comments come in a weird order, so I'm assuming you're referring to Trial and Error Collective's need for the producer to be on the air. So I'll throw that out to Tataman. Las Muletas looks like I got a little T-Rex emoji over there. Yep. Love me some McDonald's T-Rex. And Nicolas Cage fight. Blasphemy wins. I'm assuming everyone on the air isn't believes in dinosaurs, but if you don't, I'm sorry. The blasphemy wins. We're going to keep the dinosaurs. Anyway, so on to the meat of the night, QAnon. So I'm going to take a stab out in the dark here and say that probably people on the air right now, the people who are listening, aren't believers of QAnon. Now, if I'm incorrect, feel free to give me a call at 9:30 and let me know how wrong I am. So, but I'm gonna assume that most of y'all aren't believers in QAnon. But if you are, feel free also to correct me if I say anything incorrect here. But so what is QAnon? I wanted to start this show out by kind of giving some background and what exactly is QAnon, because it is it's a fairly new conspiracy theory, a fairly new, I guess you could call it a movement that's happening right now, and a lot of mainstream media news sources are covering QAnon because it is kind of coming into its own in regards to coming out of the shadows, if you will, and kind of making its way across the desks of a lot of, I guess you could say, normal people, or people who are just kind of into watching more of the mainstream news stuff. But anyway, this is from Wikipedia. So a QAnon is a far-right conspiracy theory alleging that a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles running a global child sex trafficking ring is plotting against President Donald Trump, who is battling them. No part of the theory is based on fact. Now, this next section is from a website called whatisqanon.wordpress.com. QAnon is a movement that promotes independent thought, research, and using logic. The CIA created Project Mockingbird over 70 years ago, and it continues to infiltrate Hollywood, both national and local press, and social media. We are currently engaged in the largest battle of information warfare ever known to man, and the entire globe's well-being depends on genuine truth being exposed. What is done in darkness must be brought to light. The major purpose of the QAnon movement is to help people understand that the reality is being distorted by people who do not want you to know the full truth. They do not have the general public's best interest in mind. It is not just in America, it affects many countries worldwide. Now, this is also from Wikipedia, just in case, I'm assuming most people don't know what Project Mockingbird is, but Project Mockingbird was a wiretapping operation initiated by the United States President John F. Kennedy to identify the sources of government leaks by eavesdropping on the communications of journalists. Now, when I read this on whatisqanon.wordpress.com, I assumed that they probably just made a mistake, because I feel like they were probably trying to reference a slightly different project that's actually also called Mockingbird, but it doesn't have anything to do with wiretapping. So this other project is actually Operation Mockingbird, which was an alleged large-scale program of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, that began in the early years of the Cold War and attempted to manipulate news media for propaganda purposes. It funded student and cultural organizations and magazines as front organizations. So that seems more likely what they were talking about. So I'd say let's just forget about Project Mockingbird and go with Operation Mockingbird, according to whatisqanon.com. So QAnon alleges that the secret satanic cabal exists within the Democratic Party. Now, in researching for this show, I did find a few kind of stories and articles discussing QAnon where a few people did kind of go off record and say that they don't believe any of the parties. The secret satanic cabal exists in the Democrats and the Republicans. No one is clean necessarily of being engaged. They're all engaging in this sort of secret satanic practice. So, but for the most part, QAnon and their believers do believe it's mostly centralized within the Democratic Party. So we'll go with that. So it's mostly centered around the Democratic Party, as well as within the Hollywood elite. This cabal has existed for quite some time, using their power and influence to continue trafficking children to the wealthy and powerful, as well as to use them in satanic rituals and the production of adrenochrome. So yet again, adrenochrome comes up over here at Tarantulas Dream TV. I've talked about adrenochrome a few times in regards to Phil Schneider's claims about underground military bases, as well as Max Spears' claims about adrenochrome as well. But again, if whoever's on the air doesn't know about adrenochrome, adrenochrome is rumored to be a highly addictive and psychoactive drug, which also contains properties of physical longevity, which makes it highly coveted amongst celebrities. Adrenochrome has gained a massive resurgence in conversational popularity due to the rise of conspiracy theory documentary Out of Shadows. Now, I started to watch Out of Shadows. I talked about it, I believe, during the Max Spears episodes, and I never finished it. But essentially, yes, that's kind of a big part of the Out of Shadows documentary in regards to child trafficking and them trafficking children, not just unfortunately, for sexual abuse, but also to torture them and then take their adrenalized like blood or the adrenochrome from the pineal glands. So it's a very nefarious, awful conspiracy theory when it comes to adrenochrome, but it is part of the QAnon conspiracy. Donald Trump was chosen to become president as he has been tasked to bring down the secret cabal and end the massive human trafficking operations being conducted. Donald Trump is not considered a politician and is an outsider, not under the influence of the cabal or the deep state. QAnon has predicted that sometime during the Trump presidency, massive arrests will be made, most likely in secret. Conspiracy theorist and online journalist Liz Crokin is a firm believer that COVID-19 lockdowns across the country have been orchestrated as a false flag scenario, allowing the military to conduct these massive arrests while keeping the general populace safe, as they would most likely be in their homes under quarantine. Crokin is still promoting QAnon through her Instagram, as she has been banned from Twitter, and she's even selling Q merch, including beanies, hats, beach towels, and yoga pants. So I also talked about Liz Crokin during the Conspiracy Theories episode. She's still on that QAnon Trump train. She has not been banned from Instagram as far as I can tell. I don't really know. I'm not 100% sure if Instagram actually does kind of like blanket bans on people. I know they delete profiles, but I feel like people are just able to start another one anyway. So potentially she might have had a profile deleted at some point, but she's still on Instagram. You can still find her if you just search Liz Crokin, and you can find her her merch account where she sells Q branded merch. Because despite the heaviness of this conspiracy theory and sort of the world-changing implications of this, if any of this kind of stuff was true, you still got to make a dime and a dollar off of it. So, again, I guess if any of my listeners are QAnon believers, you can buy some QAnon merch if you'd like. QAnon has been able to remain anonymous throughout its inception, which has allowed them or it to continue spreading information without fear of reprisal or true debate. Now, the ultimate goal is the eradication of this global cabal and child trafficking. The more otherworldly goal is the destruction of the satanic agenda running throughout the Democratic Party and the secret elite, bringing about what is referred to as a reverse rapture event, an earthly utopia for those faithful to the course. So, QAnon and a lot of conspiracies, they always have to involve some sort of otherworldly being, some sort of upper hierarchy of rulers, and it almost always seems to tie into a sort of a spiritual battle. And QAnon is no exception. They're believers of QAnon. I'd say even if you were to research, like in my research, I found that a lot of the claims that were being kind of implied and sort of these ideas that QAnon believers have tend to be at least rooted in sort of earthly things. It's essentially the kind of the corruption of the Democratic Party, the corruption of Hollywood elite, the corruption of our rulers, essentially. It's all stuff that isn't particularly otherworldly and unbelievable. It's definitely far-fetched, but it's not something that you would necessarily listen to and be like, that's impossible. Other than some of the... there are other things you would say that do sound impossible. One that... people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and the whole Pizzagate thing, because the Pizzagate is also tied into QAnon. The idea that these high-profile politicians, former presidents and former presidents, people running for president, these people would have these underground child trafficking rings. That is particularly far-fetched to me. But what goes beyond that is the idea that it is also satanic. It's also, it comes down to a spiritual battle. It comes down to a battle of good and evil, with the ultimate end goal being the abolition of these things that would then turn into sort of, I guess, like a heaven on earth, which is not, again, I guess if you're a believer of Christianity and the Bible, that isn't necessarily what the Bible says is going to happen. There is supposed to be a rapture where people are taken into the heavens, the believers of Jesus and God who've had their sins cleansed through the blood of Christ. They're supposed to be raptured into the heavens, and earth is supposed to be kind of left to the evil. So the idea that QAnon is doing these things to sort of create a heaven on earth, a utopia, feels very antithetical to the beliefs of Christianity and the Bible. But again, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on. So, and a lot of these conspiracy theories kind of don't make sense regardless of how rooted in actual reality they are. So anyway, I'm going to continue. That was more of an aside, but it's definitely something that the more you read about it, the more you kind of just still have to scratch your head, even if you believe that politicians, government, that there is sort of a deep state controlling, that everyone is just essentially a puppet, that this battle of good and evil is a spiritual battle. It starts to get a little murky, and it stops making sense once you really dive into it. So the next thing I want to talk about before we take our break in about 6-7 minutes is these things called Q drops. Now, Q drops are posts made by QAnon that reveal secret information. The posts are usually highly convoluted, never truly revealing exactly the information that Q adherents are supposed to learn. Most drops involve taking Twitter posts from Donald Trump and then spinning a narrative around that post, although again, the narrative is veiled in secrecy. Now, this secrecy has led to the movement's success, as followers of Q are encouraged to search for the hidden meaning behind each drop, therefore giving followers a sense of importance and belonging to the movement. This leads to a stronger connection to the idea that when these prophecies and revelations eventually come true, followers will be vindicated and potentially rewarded. There are numerous sites dedicated to spreading these Q drops, with some of the most prominent being QMap, QProofs, and QPosts. Now, I didn't want to actually list the addresses for these things, just because when this video gets uploaded to YouTube, I don't necessarily want people who are already kind of in the camp of potentially believing QAnon or are already followers of QAnon, or as we've talked about in the past, I don't want people who are already kind of curious and searching for these kind of things finding my video and then the algorithm of the internet kind of taking them down the path of showing them more what they would consider evidence or more things to research that would lead people to believe in QAnon. But these are sites that if you just do if you just go to my favorite search engine, DuckDuckGo, and type in QAnon drops, these sites are the first ones that come up. So they're not hidden at all. These aren't things that people are going to have a hard time finding. So I'm okay with talking about them in this capacity, just because I feel like I'm not releasing anything that's secret or that people would have a hard time finding. Now, these sites collect drops, or what they call crumbs, from the main Q drop site, which is located on 8chan, which is now known as 8kun, or KUN. I think 8kun or 8kun. I don't think they're trying to make a racist statement, but I didn't really know how to pronounce it. But 8kun is another bulletin board / message board type site similar to 4chan, where people are allowed to post anonymously. So and I went to 8kun or 8kun to kind of see what was going on there. And if you think that 4chan is bad, this site is way worse. It was, at least in the sense that 4chan has kind of been popularized to the point where most people who may not even be you could call them edgelords, or people who are trolls, people who would kind of want to find these sites. Most people know somewhat what 4chan is, or at least how bad it kind of is. 8kun or 8kun is way worse, I'd say. I mean, right when you log on to the site, on the left-hand side, there's kind of a aggregate of the different search terms that people have been using based on popularity, and one of the first ones was the N-word. So, I wouldn't recommend going to this site, but it is where a lot of these Q drop posts are posted initially, and then these posts are then taken from 8kun and then posted on these other sites, QProofs, QPost, QMap, all these kind of things. So these are where they're originating from, or where at least they're living now. So what was QAnon's supposed first post? Now, this is from joinliberty.com. On October 28, 2017, QAnon's first post says, HRC, which stands for Hillary Rodham Clinton, HRC extradition already in motion, effective yesterday with several countries in case of cross-border run. Passport approved to be flagged effective 10:30 at 12:01 a.m. Expect massive riots organized in defiance and others fleeing the U.S. to occur. USMs, or U.S. military, will conduct the operation while NG activated, or National Guard. Proof check. Locate a National Guard member and ask if activated for duty 10:30 across most major cities. Now, Q posted the above message in reply to another Anon, or anonymous poster, who had claimed Hillary Clinton will be arrested between 7:45 6:45 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, the morning on October 30th, 2017. Now, Q never fully explained this post, but it appears to be partial or complete disinformation, which is false or misleading information, meant to get the attention of the Anons on the 4chan board. As of January 2020, there's no publicly available evidence to suggest that Hillary Rodham Clinton was extradited or that an official attempt to extradite her was ever made. In a later post, Q indicated that this post was disinfo, sources needed. So the idea of using disinfo as an excuse for claims that don't come true, Q followers are able to deflect criticism when events don't pan out and mass arrests aren't made. Instead, when events don't come to pass, it is another sign that Q is using disinfo to confuse the deep state or the black hats. Now, what are the black hats? The black hats are rumored to be any part of the deep state cabal, ultimately including drug and child traffickers, weapons dealers, etc. On the opposite side of the coin are the white hats, who are people who are exposing the evil machinations of the government. There are political players on both sides of the group, as well as hackers who are helping to both spread this information as well as suppress it. So again, this leads to a very slippery slope where you can easily disprove something to somebody who is a believer of QAnon or anyone who's a conspiracy theorist and has these particular beliefs. You can point to different evidence that you're able to fact check, you're able to research, you're able to pull from sources that you find credible, non-biased sources, what have you. And the logic behind QAnon is that QAnon will purposely post disinformation, false claims, to throw off what they say are the black hats or the part of the deep state cabal, to throw them off the trail, which essentially means that it doesn't matter what they say, whether it happens or not. The evidence to QAnon believers is just the fact that these things are being released and that there's nothing you can say to kind of disprove it to them. Because ultimately, you can't trust mainstream media news. And even if something that QAnon says was going to happen doesn't happen, it's all part of a disinfo campaign from Q. So really, there's kind of no winning when you're dealing with this sort of ideology, which is honestly one of the more scarier parts, is the idea that I keep hearing this term a lot, a post-truth world. I hear this term a lot in news stories and on the news and different places on the internet, where essentially we're past the point of being able to really show and conclusively prove what is truth, what is objective truth. There is no truth. So ultimately, it's hard to figure out how to win in this kind of environment. So anyway, a few more points before we go to the break. So the post is also where the name Q originated from. So as the poster declared, they obtained a Q level clearance. Now this is from Wikipedia. A Q clearance or Q access authorization is the Department of Energy, or the DOE, security clearance required to access top secret restricted data, formerly restricted data, and national security information, as well as secret restricted data. A Q clearance is equivalent to a United States Department of Defense top secret clearance. Anyone possessing an active Q clearance is always categorized as holding a national security critical sensitive position, or a sensitivity level 3. Additionally, most Q cleared incumbents will have collateral responsibilities, designated them as level 4, or national security special sensitive personnel. With these two designations standing as the highest risk sensitivity levels, occupants of these positions hold extraordinary accountability, having the potential to cause exceptionally grave or inestimable damage to the national security of the United States. Now, the seeds for the QAnon conspiracy were sown earlier on in that same month, when at a photo opportunity with top military staff at the White House, Trump remarked, "You guys know what this represents? Maybe it's the calm before the storm." When pressed on the meaning behind that statement, Trump replied, "You'll find out." The storm is referred to by QAnon supporters as the systemic takedown of the globalists described by QAnon, the mysterious internet poster linked to Donald Trump, aka the Great Awakening. Now, the Great Awakening is just another name attributed to QAnon, essentially by Q sharing all these crumbs about the inner workings of our government and the Trump administration's efforts to drain the swamp. A growing population of people are now waking up to the truth. So Here we are. We're here at the break. We've already covered a decent amount of ground with some of the more background with QAnon. One kind of not quite as nefarious thing that I read about QAnon is they referred to these drops as crumbs, and so QAnon followers tend to like to refer to themselves as bakers because they're baking the bread. They're taking the crumbs and I guess they're putting the crumbs together to make like a loaf of bread. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny and sort of cute, but not not. But anyway, it's 9:31, so I'm a little late on the break. So let's get to it. So tonight's song of the night is by the band Lumpy and the Dumpers. The song's called Loony from their 2016 album Huff My Sack. So when we get back, we're going to be talking about more QAnon, maybe taking your phone calls if you'd like to call during open lines. Phone number for the show is 520-704-7820. If you have any comments or questions about QAnon for old Samba over here, we'll get into it, but please enjoy Lumpy and the Dumpers. There you go. That was Loony from Lumpy and the Dumpers from their 2016 album Huff My Sack. Now, if you have any interest in throwing some bones towards Lumpy and the Dumpers, some lumpy bones, you can find them at lumpyandthedumpers.bandcamp.com. So feel free to check them out on the old Bandcamp. I always love when I hear reports back that there was a sale or a listen after a broadcast of mine to some of these people's Bandcamp. So feel free to go give Lumpy and the Dumpers a listen. Time is 9:35. It is open line. So if you have any questions for Samba about QAnon, or if if you have a belief of your own that's QAnon-ish. I don't know. Maybe you have your own original conspiracy theory. Feel free to give me a call. Number's 520-704-7820. Now, before I get back to QAnon, I want to get to some of these comments because I haven't checked them. And it looks like I got quite a few over here. So... Trial and Error Collective, smashing the heart every time Samba says meat of the night. Well, there you go. Meat of the night, meat of the night, meat of the night. I want to see those hearts blowing up over here. Thank you very much, Trial and Error Collective. Eggs and Eyes, honest question. Wasn't Trump a celebrity, though? That actually kind of helps his case to a lot of QAnon believers. They feel like even though he was a celebrity, the fact that he was able to break out of the Hollywood celebrity elite and become our president, that he's just a normal dude. He's just... He's a product of the great theory, the great practice of capitalism, that he was able to build himself up, and now he's the president, and he's the man made for the job to expose these elites. Eggs and Eyes, I mean, he's aging not great, so I don't know about adrenochrome consumption on his end. Yeah, again, with adrenochrome, for it being used for... kind of anti-aging kind of vitality purposes, I don't know, it doesn't really seem to be working for a lot of people. I mean, I know there was some kind of memes kind of being shown during this kind of lockdown time of a lot of celebrities not looking their best, and I mean, a lot of it is just the fact that we're all stuck at home. Why are we doing our makeup and sucking in our stomachs, and we're just kind of flopped on the couch? And these celebrities are no different. I mean, they're different in the sense that they have personal trainers and personal chefs making all their meals, but in regards to if no one's making any movies or making any TV shows, I mean, they're just kind of hanging around. So I doubt it's because of adrenochrome withdrawal, and probably just because they're in front of their MacBook cameras shooting their TV shows from home. So yeah, people are not aging well, but it's probably just because this year sucks. Trial and Error Collective, adrenochrome light, perhaps. Yeah, maybe they're just getting some diet adrenochrome or something. Las Maletas, evangelicals, man. Yeah, I don't know. QAnon is a very Christian-centric conspiracy theory for sure, and you know, Trump is sort of seen as sort of the savior. He's got, you know, they see him as sort of the person who's going to lead them to this sort of heaven on earth. So yeah, he's sort of a Jesus figure to a lot of these QAnon believers. Eggs and Eyes, dude, if I ever have to start thinking about Donald Trump is our savior, I'm so okay with chilling in Devil City after the rapture. Just leave me behind to party. Well, everyone knows that the best bands, the best music is affiliated with Satan, so I'm sure it'd be a pretty good party. Even though I'm not a big, I don't really like the saying Hail Satan or anything. I don't like giving power to those kind of things, but yeah, ultimately, yeah, I mean, if Donald Trump is Jesus, then we're in for a rough afterlife. L. Christine 720, hell is sounding better and better. Eggs and Eyes, yep, I agree about that. Eggs and Eyes, my mom is aware of 4chan because of QAnon. Dude, my brain truly fried that day. Yeah, I mean, seeing QAnon in the news sort of kind of on a daily basis for at least a week was definitely something that I wasn't expecting to see when I first started hearing about QAnon a while ago. I didn't really expect it to kind of make such a kind of resurgence and sort of a kind of plant itself so firmly in a lot of people's brains in this way. But you know, some people believe QAnon is sort of akin to a cult and a religious movement. So you know, I guess we're seeing maybe the emergence of a new sort of religion, which is not great. Let's see, let's keep going. El Christine, I mean, you can't prove that the sky isn't really a high ceiling made of paper and that all astronomers and pilots aren't in on the conspiracy. Yeah, I guess you can. I mean, but it also kind of goes towards sort of the flat earth flat earthers as well, where, you know, they kind of believe that a lot of pilots and aviation experts are in on the lie. So, you know, again, when you're in this conspiratorial mindset, essentially you can't trust anything. You can't trust anything that you can't see with your own eyes. And even then, a lot of people, you know, with the different rumored government projects, potentially those might be holograms, what you're seeing. So, you know, it is what it is, I guess. Trial and Error Collective, unless you're Truman Burbank. Oh, yes. And Eggs and Eyes, lumpy bones. Yes, throw some lumpy bones towards Lumpy in the Dumpers if you feel so inclined. Anyway, so back to QAnon. So before I went on the break, I was kind of give you a little background on QAnon. Now, for the last 20 minutes of the show, I wanted to get into the phrase WWG1W GA, and the concept of digital soldiers. Now, you're going to see a lot of this abbreviation, this hashtag on Twitter when it comes to believers of QAnon or bakers. But the acronym stands for Where We Go One, We Go All, which is a common phrase associated with QAnon, usually posted on Twitter in various forms as the hashtag WWG1WGA. Now, this phrase is used as a rallying cry for followers of QAnon, and is said to be taken from a phrase engraved on the bell that was attached to President John F. Kennedy's boat, the Honey Fisk. JFK plays a weirdly significant role in the QAnon conspiracy, which I will get to actually on Wednesday, because I don't believe we'll have time to talk about JFK. But he makes an appearance as well as his kid, JFK Jr. However, despite these claims, the boat actually never belonged to JFK. Now, this is from gcaptain.com, which is a website about sailing and captains. The 93-foot wooden yacht was originally built in 1931 by a Defoe shipyard in Bay City, Michigan for Sewell Avery, a prominent businessman from Chicago, who's mostly used it to cruise around Lake Michigan. The yacht was purchased or possibly expropriated from Avery in 1942 by the U.S. government and assigned to the Coast Guard. The yacht first gained presidential status with President Harry S. Truman, who used it mostly as a tender for the much larger and much more lavish Williamsburg. In all, the yacht was used by 5 U.S. presidents: Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, but was most famous for its role as the presidential yacht for John F. Kennedy, who renamed it Honey Fisk after his grandfather. Kennedy is said to have spent some of the happiest times of his life on the Honey Fisk. During the presidency, he would use it extensively to entertain family and close friends, cruising up and down the eastern seaboard from the Potomac River in D.C. to Cape Cod. The yacht was eventually sold to a private buyer during the Nixon administration in 1970. Recently, the yacht underwent an extensive 2-year restoration to bring it back to its Camelot-era glory days it is mostly known for. Now, the phrase can actually be attributed to the 1996 disaster survival film White Squall, starring Jeff Bridges. Now, this is what Wikipedia describes the film as a coming-of-age film in which a group of high school and college-age teenagers sign up for several months of training aboard a sail ship, Brigantine, and travel around half the globe when suddenly they are challenged by a severe storm. Now, I actually have the trailer for White Squall, and I did want to play it for you all. It may seem like it doesn't have anything to do with QAnon, but actually a lot of I found to see that a lot of QAnon believers actually look up to this film as sort of a story of people overcoming odds, overcoming the odds against them. Even though, spoiler alert, if anyone was, I hope no one was interested in watching White Squall, but they die at the end. They don't overcome the odds. But for followers of QAnon, they believe that this movie kind of says more than what is letting on. So I'm going to play you the trailer for White Squall.
The ship beneath you is not a toy. Sailing's not a game.
So why the hell do it?
Bill's character, Mr. Preston, of which you are in desperately short supply.
They came from different places.
And this Ocean Academy isn't recognized as accredited.
It'll be a good thing, Dad.
They sailed for different reasons.
I don't want to be what I was when I left.
There you go.
Anonymous.
But there was only one way.
We'll do it together.
I can't.
Climb!
To survive on his ship.
I will challenge them, and they will come together.
Become a team.
Where we go one, we go all.
Because where he was taking them
What are they doing?
Claiming their place in the world
could not be measured in miles. They thought they had survived the greatest challenge of their lives.
we had come through every kind of seas imaginable.
Except the White Squall.
But it was only
White Squall's a phenomenon of the imagination.
the calm
What happened to my ship was not imagined.
before the storm. Largo Entertainment presents a film about loyalty,
Where we go one,
We go all.
discovery,
But we're a crew.
That's what this whole thing is about.
and courage.
Don't you walk out of this, Skipper, you don't!
Captain, they're only boys.
We listened to you, we believed you!
they're much more than that, sir.
And we are still here!
Jeff Bridges in a Ridley Scott film. White Squall, based on a true story.
There you go. So that was the trailer for White Squall, directed by Ridley Scott, most famous for, the Alien and all that kind of stuff. So he also directed White Squall. There you go. But yeah, a lot of QAnon followers, when they find out about this movie, really connect with it. And actually, during the trailer, you saw a few things that kind of make a reappearance. The idea of one of the dudes was like, I don't want to be anonymous. He doesn't want to be just a face in the crowd. He wants to be part of something greater, much like I believe a lot of these followers of QAnon want to do as well. They want to be part of something greater, even if that greater thing means taking down a satanic cabal of elite pedophiles in the Democratic Party. But anyway, so that was a trailer for White Squall. Now, the boat used for the film was actually called the Eye of the Wind, and it is a brigantine-rigged sailing ship built in 1911 at the C.H. Luring shipyard in Brake, Germany, or I think that's how you pronounce it, Brake, Germany, which was originally as a topsail schooner named Frederick. Now, the bell attached to this boat does contain the inscription, "Where we go one, we go all." So that phrase is attributed to an actual boat. It's just not the boat that JFK sailed on, so he has no real connection to that phrase. Yet this is a thing that is constantly being kind of shared amongst believers of QAnon, that because they kind of look up to JFK as sort of the last president that wasn't controlled by I guess you could say the Illuminati, or they wasn't controlled by the secret cabal. And in fact, the QAnon believers, the rumor is that JFK was assassinated because he was going to expose the cabal. But again, there is no proof of that, and there is a quote that if you look online, I'm not going to share it, but there's a quote that essentially JFK was supposed to have said, there is a secret cabal controlling every man, woman, and child on earth, and before my presidency is over, I'm going to expose it. He never said that, or at least there is no record of him ever saying that phrase, yet it is plastered on memes of JFK, a picture of him, and shared on forums and amongst people, believers of QAnon. So again, the idea of disinformation and not really fact-checking anything, and not really doing due diligence and researching the things you should be researching, it's in full display here. Now, here's a few reviews I found on Amazon.com of the movie White Squall that I found interesting. Now, this was the title of this one goes, recommended by Q, and they gave it 5 stars. I watched this after it was mentioned by #QAnon. It isn't the type of movie I would normally select, but in the context of the Great Awakening, it was very relevant to some current events that are happening or coming to pass. Did you know the bell on JFK's boat said, "Where we go one, we go all"? Just like in this movie. The movie was actually pretty good and entertaining. The acting was good. Let's hope the storm going on in real time has a happier ending than this movie. Another review, okay, but I only watch it once, and they gave it 3 stars. My husband wanted to watch this movie. I don't think it's ever been very popular. I've never heard about it when it came out in 1996. He wanted to watch it because the ship's bell had the same motto on it as the one on JFK's boat, and there is some connection of this motto with the Q movement, which he is interested in. I had to wonder if the author knew about the motto in JFK's boat's bell, and that's why he put it in the story. Overall, though, a lackluster movie. And the last review, a 5-star review titled "QAnon has mentioned this movie several times." It's a little long one, but it's not too bad. Apparently their review was actually just a repost of one of these Q drops, so they posted the Q drop in full. It said, "Q post 1603, the American people are awake. 1602 Q," and then they kind of give it like a little code here. "If you continue to proceed down this dangerous path only to know that we are prepared, you should know this is based on earlier drops. The game is over when the public knows. The fight to keep the lights off is all that matters to you. You will fail. The American people are awake. You lost control. Sheep no more. You underestimated their resolve and their ability to free think away from the pipeline narrative. We will declass." Or declass. They didn't, I don't know, DECLAS. I think they declass, but they didn't spell it right. "We will shine light. There is nowhere to hide. No amount of money, influence, or power can stop this. Our rights to secure and protect at all costs then become justified. We stand at the ready. Red wave, White Squall, in God we trust, Q." Still a great movie. So they really loved this movie, and the review was just a Q drop. And apparently Q loves this movie as well and they want their followers to love this movie and follow it, even though it's spreading false information about the fact that JFK never had "Where We Go When, Where We Go All" on his boat. But anyway, let's continue, as I've got about 10 minutes left on the stream. So now this phrase has actually been posted and shared by various political figures and celebrities, and we're going to get into a few of the more celebrity cases on Wednesday. But I wanted to get into Michael Flynn tonight. Now, Michael Flynn, if you don't know, and this is from Wikipedia, is a retired United States Army Lieutenant General who was the 24th National Security Advisor for the first 22 days of the Trump administration until his forced resignation. Flynn's military career included a key role in shaping U.S. counterterrorism strategy and dismantling insurgent networks in the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, and he was given numerous combat arms, conventional, and special operations senior intelligence assignments. He served as the 18th Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency from July 2012 until his forced retirement from the military in August of 2014. Now, Flynn served as a senior advisor to Trump during his 2016 presidential campaign. On January 22nd, 2017, Flynn was sworn in as a national security advisor. On February 13th of 2017, he resigned after information resurfaced that he had misled Vice President Mike Pence about the nature and content of his communications with Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. Flynn's tenure as a national security advisor is the shortest in the history of the position. Now, on August 13th, 2019, Mother Jones magazine published an article. Michael Flynn and George Papadopoulos are scheduled to speak at a conference organized by a QAnon supporter. Now, Michael Flynn and George Papadopoulos, who are two former Trump foreign policy aides who both agreed in late 2017 to cooperate with special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, appear to have found some new allies, QAnon conspiracy theorists. Flynn, a retired Army Lieutenant General and former head of the DIA, briefly served as Donald Trump's national security advisor before he was forced to resign. Now, he and Papadopoulos are listed as speakers at the upcoming Digital Soldiers Conference, a one-day event scheduled for September 14th in Atlanta that promises to ready patriotic social media warriors for a coming digital civil war against censorship and suppression. Other featured speakers include Bill Mitchell, an online broadcaster and conspiracy theorist, singer and Trump backer Joy Villa, and a mystery guest. The event is being organized by Rich Granville, the CEO of Yippee Incorporated, who has a Twitter feed littered with references to QAnon, a conspiracy theory centered around the notion that Trump is secretly taking down an international ring of pedophiles. Now, the webpage for Granville's conference was prominently featured an American flag festooned with a Q. So in the corner of the flag where the stars are actually made to form a Q. So now in an interview, Granville denied the Q on the flag is a deliberate QAnon reference. He said the stars referred to Flynn's prior status as a 3-star general. He said, "It does look like Q, but there is no reference to QAnon anywhere on that site," Granville said. He acknowledged that he personally espouses QAnon views. "Do I think it's good for America? Absolutely," he said. "Do I think it's a conspiracy theory? I doubt that." Now, after this article was published, the website for the Digital Soldiers Conference was taken down and Michael Flynn pulled out of the conference. And as far as I can tell, this conference never happened. I can't find any evidence online of it actually ever happening, if they went through with it anyway without Michael Flynn. So I just think it kind of just petered out after the Mother Jones article. Now, on Independence Day of 2020, Flynn posted a video to his Twitter account taking what is called the Digital Soldier's Oath, which takes its cues from the Oath of Office, which is the video I played at the intro. Now, this video, Flynn uses the WWG1 WGA phrase. Now, when questioned about the phrase, Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, said, "The slogan comes from an engraved bell on JFK's sailboat, acknowledging the unity of mankind. The oath is obvious, the federal oath in support of our Constitution. He wanted to encourage people to think about being a citizen. Don't read anything else into it." Now, followers of QAnon consider themselves digital soldiers ready to fight the war of information that is being waged against them by the deep state cabal who controls the mainstream media. Now, the term digital soldier first began to gain ground around 2016 when Flynn gave for the Young America's Foundation, which is described as a conservative youth organization founded in 1969, whose stated mission is ensuring that increasing numbers of young Americans understand and are inspired by the ideas of individual freedom, a strong national defense, free enterprise, and traditional values. In 2018, the Los Angeles Times called the Young America's Foundation one of the most preeminent, influential, and controversial forces in the nation's conservative youth movement. Now, notable alumni members include Jeff Sessions and Stephen Miller. Now, the speech, where he also praises Dinesh D'Souza, who is a right-wing author and filmmaker of such documentaries as 2016, Obama's America, Hillary's America, the Secret History of the Democratic Party, and Death of a Nation, Can We Save America a Second Time? And he also praises Milo Yiannopoulos, who is another far-right commentator and former editor of Breitbart News. Now, during the speech, he talks about the idea of a digital media war conducted against Donald Trump during the 2016 presidential race. He praises the efforts of young conservatives who use social media to spread information the mainstream media doesn't want to report. Around 14 minutes into the speech, Flynn begins talking about digital soldiers. So I'm going to play you that clip real quick. I have about a minute left before we have to end the show for tonight. So I want you to hear this Flynn speech about digital soldiers.
And we have an army, okay, as a soldier and as a general, as a retired general. We have an army of digital soldiers. What we are now, what I call them, because this was an insurgency, folks. This was run like an insurgency. This was irregular warfare at its finest in politics. And that story will continue to be told here. But we have what we call citizen journalists. Okay? Because the journalists that we have in our media did a disservice to themselves, actually more than they did to this country. They did a disservice to themselves because they displayed an arrogance that is unprecedented. And so the American people decided to take over the idea of information. They took over the idea of information, and they did it through social media.
There you go. So that was Michael Flynn talking about digital soldiers, this idea of a digital war that's being kind of conducted right now, and QAnon is sort of right in the middle of this digital war of information and truth. And having someone like Michael Flynn, who is a decorated former member of the military who served on an administration kind of believing this and kind of promoting it, is extremely dangerous, and it's extremely disconcerting to see that. And again, this is someone who I believe self-identifies as a Democrat, at least at one point, but now seems to kind of gone off the deep end with the far right. So at any rate, that's the end of the show for tonight. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Tarantulas Dream TV. I'll be back on Wednesday with more on QAnon. I might have a guest on Wednesday. I'm not quite sure. But we're going to get into the big players perpetuating QAnon. We're going to get into the president and the administration's response, as well as who is QAnon. Now, there's some information out there that's kind of been coming to light recently about who could potentially be the actual QAnon themselves. And so we're going to get into that on Wednesday. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please remember, if you're going outside, wear a mask, social distance if you can, and remember, it is a weird, weird world. Take care.